the twilight over Hacienda. Los Laureles, nestled in the sultry heart of Cuba, was always thick, like honey and secrets. But on that night, the darkness deepened to the color of lead, concealing a terrifying, irreversible mystery, though it could not silence the echo of her pain. Shards of crystal and remnants of satin scattered on the bedroom floor eloquently spoke of the battle that had occurred. 23-year-old Isabela de la Vega Carlos, whose fate had long been sold for an aristocratic title and emeralds, had suffered for years from the coldness and contempt of her husband. It was this desperate deprivation, this spiritual thirst, that pushed her into the arms of a forbidden, incinerating passion for another man. Their secret letters, full of fire and despair, hidden in the false bottom of an old wrought-iron bureau, were discovered by her husband, Don Javier de Castillo. Javier, whose ego was painfully inflated, could not forgive not so much the infidelity, but the public humiliation. His rage, always dormant beneath a mask of arrogance, erupted, becoming her doom. "Did you think I was blind? Did you take me for a nothing, mi vida?" he hissed, and the sound of his voice was worse than any scream. It tore the silence like fabric. He hurled the crushed, crumpled sonnets, in which Raphael celebrated the curve of her neck, at her trembling feet. His eyes blazed with madness, like white-hot coals, and his face, usually well-groomed and apathetic, twisted into a grimace of animal fury. "I was searching for a soul, for human warmth, for something alive, something you never gave me," she retorted, and although her voice trembled with terror, its very timbre held the defiant, proud determination inherited from her ancestors. Marks and bruises, like a brand, remained on her delicate body, worthy of a marble statue, evidence of the struggle. Servants gathered below whispered, crossing themselves, that in her dying despair she had sunk her teeth into her husband's fingers, fighting to her last breath, like a cornered wildcat. On that fateful night of May the 17th, 1828, there were no reliable witnesses at the hacienda, save for the moon, veiled by humid tropical clouds. The entire truth about Isabella's motive and her final seconds of life was forever drowned in those tropical shadows and in a dark legend. Havana, Cuba, 1805. In the year when the golden rays of the sun stretched over the tropical savannas of Cuba and the majestic sugar plantations, a girl was born into an aristocratic family who, by all social standards, was destined for a life that should have been cloudless, yet was tragically vivid. Isabela de la Vega Carlos, daughter of Don Carlos de la Vega, the military governor, and the beautiful Leonor Castillo Osborne, was surrounded from her first years by dazzling brilliance and the icy coldness of palace halls. Her father was the brother of Doña Teresa Castillo, the wife of Viscount Fernando de Castillo, an influential grandee and schemer. When Isabella was barely 10, she was orphaned early. Her mother died of fever, and her father was killed in a clash with smugglers. The young heiress found herself under the strict guardianship of her uncle, Viscount Fernando. In Palacio Castillo, a monumental building with an inner courtyard tiled with azulejo, she grew up, absorbing an atmosphere of refinement, ostentatious piety, and a hidden, fierce struggle for political and financial influence. Her cousin Graciela de Orozco was especially close to her, the only person to whom Isabella could entrust her dreams. Graciela was intelligent, educated, but equally unhappy and unwanted in her marriage, and their silent understanding became a lifeline for Isabella. The The Havana court was a world where money and lineage were valued above feeling, a world steeped in intrigue and the poison of gossip. Viscount Fernando and Don Carlos, even during his life, saw in Isabella not a niece, but merely a key to strengthening their lineage and merging lands. And thus, at the age of 15, her fate was decided without her knowledge or consent. A husband was chosen for her, Don Javier de Castillo, her cousin on her mother's side, the younger son of a respected senator whose fortune desperately needed repair. You will become the golden bridge between our families, ensuring our influence in the council, her uncle told her, in a precise phrase that left her no choice. Isabella accepted her lot with haughty submission, but in her diary, she wrote in calligraphic script her sorrow. I was born for greatness, for power, but why does this luxury suffocate me so? Why does this splendor fail to warm? In 1820, a detailed and cynical marriage contract was signed, sealing their bargain. Isabella's dowry, 50,000 silver pesos in cash and 10,000 in emeralds from the family collection, sparkled in the display cases, a symbol of her future, but was as cold as her shattered hopes for love. Javier, the senator's younger son, was notorious at court. He was a libertine, an incorrigible spendthrift, and a zealous gambler whose unrestrained cruelty and sudden fits of rage frightened even veterans. He did not want to marry, openly despising the institution as chains, but Viscount Fernando was relentless and threatened to disinherit him. This is not about love, boy. This is about dynasty and duty. The wedding took place in the sultry April of 1823 in the luxurious halls of Palacio Castillo. Isabella, in cream-colored satin with the finest lace, was the embodiment of classical Andalusian beauty. A proud posture, hair as dark as night, and eyes that looked too intelligent and mournful for a bride. But her heart was a cold desert. Javier, gloomy in his black dress uniform, looked like a phantom. After the ceremony, which he endured with visible distaste, he immediately disappeared into the crowd of guests, granting his bride neither a glance nor a word. The marriage brought not only a lack of love, but also a lack of simple human intimacy. Javier avoided his wife from the very first days, preferring the company of dubious regimental feasts, gambling in the ports, and countless mistresses, whom he did not even try to hide. The court, always hungry for gossip, whispered that the marriage had not been consummated. In 1823, Viscount Fernando, trying to salvage the family's honor, sent Javier to the army for a year, to a garrison far from Havana, hoping to conceal his disgrace and debauchery. Isabella remained alone in Palacio Castillo, surrounded by unbearable luxury, yet infinitely lonely. Her only confidant remained her nursemaid and her own reflection in the mirror. You must bear an heir. This is your only duty and your only purpose, Javier's stepmother, Doña Luisa de Alatriste, a woman with a face of stone and a heart of ice, constantly drilled into her. The pressure was unbearable. In 1825, Javier returned, and the marriage was finally consummated, with the sole purpose of producing an heir. Soon Isabella gave birth to a son, named Pablo. Isabella, against all odds, hoped the child would become a bridge to connect them, to awaken even paternal feelings in Javier. But Javier remained indifferent, merely dryly acknowledging the fact. This boy is my duty to my father and to the lineage, but nothing more, he said with a cold sneer, and once again vanished into his profligate life. the death of Viscount Fernando in 1826 deprived Isabella of her last protection, and the only person who had some control over Javier. Alejandro, Javier's elder brother, who inherited most of the estate, looked at Isabella with open aversion, considering her an unnecessary burden, and Javier distanced himself completely, becoming a mere visitor in his own home. Isabella's only respite and comfort became the literary salon of her cousin Graciela de Orozco, which she maintained on the Malecon embankment, far from the gossip of the Central Court. There, amidst debates on philosophy and poetry, she met Don Rafael Valdés, a brilliant poet, captain of the Royal Guard, hero of a recent battle, and one of Havana's most sought-after bachelors. He did not seek titles or wealth in her. His eyes, insightful and warm, looked at her not as Señora de Castillo, but as a lonely, beautiful woman. "You are my muse, my light, my lost poetry, Isabella," he said one day, and those words became the first spark. Their forbidden, dizzying affair began with secret, eloquent glances across the room, and notes hidden in the bindings of rare books they were supposedly discussing. "Your beauty is the only light in my heart, and I am willing to burn in this fire," Raphael wrote, and his passion was intoxicating poison for Isabella. Isabella knew she was playing with fire, that one wrong step could cost her not only her honor, but her life, but her heart, which had frozen for years in marble, now refused to listen to reason. "Let him burn my cage to ashes, if only I can feel alive." Their meetings were rare, but desperately passionate, filled with stolen kisses in dark alcoves, and promises they both knew they couldn't keep. In the summer of 1828, at the very peak of the tropical heat, the secret was exposed. An old servant, bribed by Doña Luisa, found the cache of Raphael's lovingly copied poems in the bureau, and through a chain of intrigues, they fell directly into Javier's hands. His face, always pale and arrogant, became a mask of pure, inhuman madness. "Did you think I, Javier de Castillo, wouldn't find out? Did you think I would spare your life after such a disgrace?" he whispered in a choked voice. "I was looking for what you took from me, love and respect, which not even my mother gave me," Isabella retorted, and her courage only fueled his fury. His rage was unstoppable, fueled by years of debauchery, madness, and the awareness of his own worthlessness compared to her purity. He brought her to the secluded manor of Hacienda Los Laureles in the mountains, under the pretense of urgent solitude, to prepare her for a trip to Spain. But it was not a plan of salvation. It was a place of execution. On the evening of May the 16th, 1828, Javier locked the heavy oak door to the bedroom, not allowing even the servants near. Isabella retreated to the window, seeking salvation in the cool air. "I was looking for what you took from me," she repeated, and these words were the last she threw at him. A flash of rage, uncontrollable fury, a struggle in which her delicate hands tried to push him away, and in a moment of true animal terror, she bit into his wrist, trying to stop him. But their strengths were unequal. He seized the silk sash from her nightgown, an expensive gift he had once brought from Madrid, and looped it around her neck. His face remained calm, distorted only by one goal: to annihilate the dishonor. By the morning of May the 17th, when the first humid rays of the tropical sun broke through the shutters, Isabella was dead. Her body, covered in bruises, with a dark line on her thin neck, lay on the velvet bed, symbolizing the end of a dynasty, Javier, meticulously wiping the blood from his finger, wrote to his brother with astonishing coolness, "My wife, unfortunately, suffered an accident in her sleep. She died of a sudden heart attack. The body was hastily taken to Havana under cover of night and buried in the family crypt without elaborate ceremony to avoid drawing unnecessary attention. The official cause of death announced at the parish was acute cardiac insufficiency. But the court, which knew Javier, was not fooled. The whisper, 'He strangled her. He couldn't bear the shame,' spread faster than the plague. General Captain Don Jose demanded an explanation, but upon seeing the proof of the betrayal, Raphael's poems, which Javier presented as circumstances that disgraced the lineage, he forgave him, considering the act a matter of honor and a defense of family dignity. Don Rafael Valdez, her beloved, was immediately seized and thrown without trial into the damp dungeon of Fort El Moro, where he soon died of fever. But the rumors were relentless. He was strangled in his cell, just like Isabella, to erase all traces. A month later, in June, 3-year-old Pablo, Isabella's son, died, officially from fever, but the court buzzed nonstop. Javier poisoned him, unwilling to raise a child whose paternity he doubted. Thus, the entire family vanished. Javier, unpunished and freed from his shackles, continued his life into a moral and financial abyss. He gambled away the remnants of his fortune and died in 1854 at the age of 49, lonely, sick, and disgraced, his name synonymous with a curse. But Isabella, whose beauty and mind shone so briefly, remained in the memory of Havana as a martyr. Her short but fervent love for Raphael, which cost her life, became a legend secretly passed between poets. "I wanted to love, and I did love," she seemed to whisper from beneath the earth, and this was her only justification, and her immortality.